Welcome to another Foodie Friday on the Alive and Social Network. My name is Brian Turner. You can call me BT. There is my lovely co-host and daughter. Her name is Lydia Turner.
Hello.
Hello, Foodie Friday friends. Joining us in the Alive and Social Network studios, Laura Michaels, who's the managing editor at Food Service News. Hello, Laura.
Hi there. Happy to be here.
Good to have you here. And also Tammy Cabrera, who's the proprietor of Muddy Paws Cheesecake Company.
Hi there. I'm excited to be here, too. Sorry.
Just saying the words. Oh, no worries, Tammy. No, just saying the words make me go,
And how bad am I? I didn't bring any.
You know what?
Just talk about it.
I bet just in the world of cheesecake making, there's probably enough leftover residue just around you. I know this may seem untoward, but can I lick you at some point during that really didn't come across the way I wanted it to. No.
But the funny thing is people think I always have cheesecake, like it must think in my pocket or my purse.
Like dog treats or something.
Yeah,
They're sniffing you.
No matter where I am, people are like, hey, do you have some in your car? I'm like, oh, sure. Hang on.
I got it right
I usually do,
here.
actually.
It's July. What are you asking for?
Yeah, that's going to get a little melty in there. Although I do have refrigerated pockets.
That's right.
That's the way Tammy
I would
Cabrera
actually like
rolls.
some of those if you've come across that or maybe develop it.
I think we're stumbling
We're onto
upon some
something.
entrepreneurial ideas
We're
here.
all going to be millionaires next year.
This is all
Better
sounding
start talking
pretty
about
good.
this and pat them.
Yeah, that's right. Wait, this is on a podcast. Let's keep this
Shoot.
to ourselves here. All right, but let me make a note of it. Note
Yeah.
to self: refrigerated pockets. Not
I
bad.
can only imagine the
Not bad at
USDA
all.
and the FDA getting involved with that.
Yeah, well, we'll work.
Start the licensing work on that now. And
That's right. We'll cross those borders when we come.
those
to
legislation
them.
lines.
Pocket
Exactly.
temperature thermometers. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll take care of that. No worries there. Tammy, how long have you been here making cheesecake? How long has this company been going on for you, Muddy Paws Cheesecake Company?
Yeah, well, it started really small, me making cheesecakes for an office I was working on when I was just about 22 years old, and it just started really, really gradually. So I've been doing it about 22 years.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's been very, very gradual and has evolved different ways. And we've gone full circle to how we started actually in a production baking setting. We started off production baking, went to retail and weddings, and have come back to production baking and weddings. And I really love it. I miss retail, but I love production baking.
So tell me a little bit about your background. When was the first time you made a cheesecake?
My first time I made a cheesecake was probably when I was around 9 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did that one turn out?
Not so good. It actually took me quite a long time to master it. But cheesecake is both really easy and both really difficult. The wrong air setting or humidity or temperature of even your eggs, anything can really throw off a cheesecake. So it's basic home good cooking, but if you do it wrong, it can really flop, literally.
like baking in general. I mean, it's a chemistry thing.
It
that's
is a
happening.
chemistry. Yeah, it is definitely a chemistry. And we make our cheesecake the most difficult, longest way you can. So it's about 40 hours start to finish. So it's people
For one
don't
cheesecake?
for one
Oh,
cheesecake.
my gosh.
People don't realize that they'll call on Friday night and say, "Can I have one tomorrow morning?" I'm like, "Well, you can have it, but it'll be ready to eat." But yeah, but it takes a really long time, and so we're one of the few companies in the world that do an artisan cheesecake the old Greek, old-fashioned way.
Now, what does that mean? I mean, when you say artisan and old-fashioned Greek, I mean, you got two things going on there. So what does that mean?
Well, cheesecake started in ancient Greece 4,000 years ago. It was started then, and then it fortified athletes in 776 BC. So people think I'm being funny when I say that cheesecake is actually pretty good for you, and a lot of people come off the path to eat it. I'm like, no, I'm totally serious. So,
and it's an ancient food. I'm being serious here, too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's high protein, low sugar. When you make it the best way you can, like we do, and coming back to the artisan question, is hand poured, hand cut. Everything is hand done. The only thing we have for a machine is a Hobart mixer. Otherwise, everything is handmade and it is local ingredients. We use a lot of free range farms. We use a lot of local ingredients as much as we possibly can. And it makes a big difference in your product. And we're one of the few in the world that do it this way because, one, it takes a long time and ties up the kitchen. And two, you don't make a huge profit margin when you do things, the most perfect way you can. I say we're like starving musicians sometimes, when you go to orchestra hall and you see the people you've just been clapping for walk out the top and they're, beat up Dodge Horizon, and that would be the same as a cheesecake maker, but it's a lot of fun.
It's a labor of love.
Labor
for
of
you.
love.
Yeah.
It really is a passion, and it's, there's definitely ways to make paycheck if one gets a paycheck easier.
Spoken like a true entrepreneur there, Tammy.
It's an optional thing, but I never ever get up in the morning and say I'm going to work. I can't wait to get out of bed and go into the bakery. I can't wait.
Nice. It's a nice feeling to have. I mean, in any job, but especially one where you're nurturing people's souls, and that's what food does.
Yeah, we call it cheesecake therapy. Like, everyone that walks in there is in a happy mood when they come in, when they leave, either way, because there's nothing bad about getting cheesecake.
Yeah, someone hands you cheesecake and you can't be like, oh, I don't want that.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to try and have a sad face. It's not possible.
Yeah, and sometimes I actually carry in a refrigerated NSF cooler in my
Not your refrigerated pocket.
Not my pockets.
We haven't gotten there yet.
I carry slices around, and if I go in like a bank or someone seems kind of crabby, I'll walk back in with a piece of cheesecake, and they get so excited. I put cheesecake on in approved containers on top of my garbage cans. For my garbage guys, even they like leave me little smiley face notes and stuff. They get excited. So
Well, something that we had brought up in a previous podcast is you can taste the love in food, and you can also taste when someone's in a bad mood. So every Muddy Paws cheesecake that I've had has always tasted like a little hug.
yeah, aw, I'm gonna hashtag that.
Tastes like a little hug.
Tastes like a hug. Yeah, it does feel like love, and
You know what? That hashtag is way better than hashtag Can you lick Tammy?
I kind of I that's okay too, though.
Just leave it to me to go from uncomfortable to creepy all in one moment.
So tell me a little bit about your background, Tammy. Your family was from the Wisconsin area, or you moved to the Wisconsin area?
Yeah, my parents both are children of immigrants that settled in Chicago.
Okay.
They both ironically grew up in one-bedroom apartments with a lot of children on the south side of Chicago, and they both went to school and grew up in Chicago and had me and my brother there. So I lived there till I was about 7 and moved to Delavan, Wisconsin, which is south of Milwaukee. It's about an hour and a half from Chicago. Still close enough by the train, though, to jump on and go down to Michigan Avenue whenever I wanted.
Is that near Sheboygan then? I know Sheboygan is also south of Milwaukee on the way to Chicago. So where does Delavan fit in there?
It's closer to Kenosha and Lake Geneva.
Okay.
So off of Highway 50, if people from that area know that road. So near the Playboy Club. Yeah,
The
legendary
Playboy Club.
Exactly. So, but yeah, I grew up in restaurants. My parents had restaurants there. Grew up working from the age of 4 in a restaurant, and just learned a lot of things about cooking, about running a restaurant, about losing money, about having you have to have lots and lots of skills of all different levels, like marketing or customer service or cooking or cleaning horrible things, and being okay with it. Yeah.
Right. I mean, every facet of it.
Yeah. And being a servant, and being okay with that.
Having that kind of background with your family, was there ever a pressure for you to continue on that legacy of being in the food industry?
No, my parents never actually pressured me to stay in it or to help, or to say I needed to do anything. I actually, when I graduated from high school, I wanted to be far, far away from food. I mean, I grew up working so hard, so my parents working so hard, and because we had not only a restaurant but a pub, and we also had a farm, there was somebody always awake. I can't tell you the number of times I was dragged off a couch to watch watching Johnny Carson and at young ages, and then sleeping a few hours and getting back up to milk cows. And, I don't sleep a lot now. I never slept then either. So, but that's just part of entrepreneurship. But when I went to college, I decided to stay with my love of animals and go to school for veterinary. I made it through 4 years. And then passed out when I was in the cadaver unit, and
oh my,
Gosh, oh.
Yeah, and I had a hard time thinking about different things I'd have to do as a vet, and it was very much an emotional decision to not continue.
But it was you were 4 years into it, for crying out
I
loud.
know.
I mean, you're almost done.
Yeah.
Or you were done, essentially.
I had to go on to graduate school yet, but I'd finished the 4-year program, and then, but I still had some credits left. So I went to my guidance counselor, and he immediately thought I should be in marketing, which was where I probably should have been the whole time. But finished out in marketing, journalism, advertising, marketing, and then I went back home and was looking for a job, hadn't found one. Thought I'd come to Minnesota to visit a friend from college, and fell in love with the city and was visiting and ended up going to Kinko's, working on my resume, and there was these brand new things called Macintoshes, and I knew how to do them because I was in the School of Journalism in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and they'd gotten in these new machines. So
brand new technology.
And the store manager came over. He's like, "Yeah, we just got these in today. These mouse things."
And you had a veterinary background, so you knew
exactly.
it. You
I
knew
could
from
handle
mouse right
mouse
away.
really well. Exactly.
I know a mouse anatomy.
So anyhow, one thing led to the next, and my visiting turned into living here as I traveled around doing different Mac work for Kinko's, then to Rollerblade, then to a firm downtown. But through that process, I realized that I was not a good office employee. Like I was not, I was like if you put a dog in a kennel and leave him there, I was just bad. I was just not good at being locked up.
In the cube farm.
In the cube. I respect, everyone needs to make this world go around. I respect people that, I'm so glad they're doing that and they can do that. I'm not good at it. I drove everybody around me crazy because all I could do is talk about when is lunch, when's break, what are we having for coffee? What should I get coffee for you? I can run and get coffee. I'll run and get lunch.
You were the food person.
I was a food person, yeah. And then I turned into bringing in the office treat, which is where cheesecake comes in, is either office treats or employee birthdays or client meetings. And, I was running out and getting process things from on the run, and I started saying, I can make these and I can make them a lot better and save you a ton of money in the process. So I started making the office treats, and then started making cheesecake, and then all they wanted was cheesecake then. So I made a lot of cheesecake, and then when I moved here or visited here,
Now, have you officially moved here, or are you still visiting?
I'm kind of a mixture. I'm kind of a blend. I'm kind of a nomad, we'll say.
Cheesecake nomad.
That's right.
With
Ooh,
refrigerated
that has a
pockets.
ring to it, actually. Refrigerated pockets.
You're like the Johnny Appleseed of cheesecake. Just
That's right.
Spreading the love
That's
wherever
right.
you go.
I love it.
So you're still here, though, all these years
I'm still
later.
here, and I took a leap of faith and left my job and Neighborhood Development Committee in St. Paul, NDC. They go by. They're on University Avenue. I cannot say enough good things about their entrepreneur programs, their just their loans, their classes. They are the ones that really helped me really, really get started. They helped me rent a space at the Wilder Foundation, which was kind of cool. It's inside this big building using their kitchen.
Nice.
And for $5 an hour. I mean, so it was great. And then they helped me launch my first storefront on Snelling Avenue, and they helped me get through all the millions of things that come into owning a storefront, whether it be workers' comp or zoning laws or signage, even sizes of fonts and signs I didn't know was a big deal. So packaging, you name it, they were a big help. So
There's a rule about everything is what you're getting
there
at.
is.
Yeah.
And every little thing is a whole new layer of things. Even if it's a credit card machine, it was a thing,
I want Laura to chime in here
Yeah.
real quick from Food Service News. She's the managing editor here. Laura, do you hear stories like this all the time from people that you interface with in the food world and the restaurateurs and they're all pretty much entrepreneurs to a fault. Do you hear more stories like that?
In terms of
Like what
what
Tammy's
goes
telling
into,
right here, yeah.
to start, all the different hoops you have to jump through
Whether
to
it's a
start
production
up.
kitchen or the storefront thing, just all the different things that happen.
And
yeah.
it's because everyone's ultimately wants a safe, food safety is so huge that
Right.
that's what it really all comes down to in terms of what we're talking about. And so ultimately that's the city's goal, you would hope. But yeah, there are definitely a lot of rules and regulations, and even more coming out now. I know a lot of restaurants are going to be looking at menu labeling because the FDA's new regulations saying every single menu has to post calorie counts. If you have more than 20 locations of a restaurant, you're posting calorie counts. And so like here, Devani's is one company that I was talking to for a story, and they've got 21 locations, so they're just over the threshold, and so they've got to post calorie counts on everything and
On everything.
on every food item. And they do give pizzerias a little bit of leeway in terms of, the build your own type of things.
Sure.
You can't
Right,
predict
right.
what someone's going to order. So, and kind of in talking just with people from Devani's, they're kind of like, if people are coming to Devani's, they know it's a treat. They know the chances of it being a little bit higher on the calorie scale. They know that going in. And so their customers, they don't get asked for nutrition information. They might get asked about gluten-free, crust or something like that, or allergens. But I know that's something by December, the restaurants have to comply with that. And also what we're hearing is that restaurants that, don't meet the 20 location threshold, people in their mind are thinking it applies to all restaurants. And so I think going forward, even restaurants with one location are going to be hearing, oh, I thought you had to provide this information. Why don't you have it? And it's just a lot of stuff that they have to go through.
Do you think that's over-regulation, that kind of stuff, Tammy? I mean, you've worked in different facets of this. Your family has a background in the food service and hotel world. And it's one thing to want to inform the public and the people that will be buying and purchasing food about the foods and things that are related to it. But is that going a little too far, do you think, with, that much introspection into every item on every menu? What's your read on that?
Well, I mean, of course, we're all glad that they do it, and us, our culture compared to other cultures, and we're so clean, and we have, our kitchen particularly is so spotless. So I'm proud of that, but I think they should scale it to the size of company. Is for a little place like me to get to be certified for gluten-free and vegan was $14,000.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
Yeah, and it almost knocked me out. It almost took us down, honestly. I don't know how other places can absorb those kinds of, they stopped our kitchen for a matter of days. We had to go through a lot of new things we had to add in, a lot of things we had to bill out. We had to bring in, emergency nutrition teams to put out these calorie counts, and it was really stressful
And expensive.
And I think it should be scaled to what you produce, to kind of the number, like the regulations. I'm not saying there shouldn't be, but I think that we need to be looked at for what our dollar amounts are and how much we're having to, I can't put out what Olive Garden puts out for the amount of nutritional analysis fees and things like that. And we do a great job of it, but we have 222 flavors. You do the math.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's really is. How can you do it? How can you really?
It almost knocked us.
Yeah.
It almost went bankrupt.
Yeah.
We really did. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned your vegan and gluten-free options, and looking online, looking at the Yelp reviews, looking at people that are reviewing Muddy Paws, like that's the thing that people are bringing up more often than not is, oh my gosh, I go here, they have gluten-free cheesecake. This is crazy.
Yeah.
What was the push for that? Was it just that you felt that there was a strong desire and a niche market for that kind of dessert and you went with it? Or was it someone in your family that's gluten-free or vegan wanting to eat your cheesecakes? Or where did that desire come from?
We really honestly do it as a service. We really make very, very little money on those. But so I wouldn't really call it a market, as more of a service, because we've had so many people that have weddings and then they have a table or they have a guest that's gluten-free and they don't want them not to be able to have something. That's really where it started. And I also had an employee who was vegan, and it was really a passion of hers to bring it there. And I, as an animal lover, I really felt like that we should have that. So we've developed vegan before vegan was cool. That was probably 1994 that we developed vegan, which was actually pretty difficult to find product for, but it's really pretty much the same recipe today. But it really came from people's desires and needing and having a hard time finding what they needed. I have a ton of food allergies myself, as does my family. So it's personal to my heart to be able to find good food that is you can eat on your special diet, various special diets.
What kind of things are you allergic to? Give us a little insight into that. I mean, because I'm always curious when I hear that
Yeah.
from people in the food world, and it's not surprising, but
Yeah.
it's always a curiosity for me. And then what things do you, as a person who makes food and enjoys food,
Yeah.
what do you have to avoid?
Things that are in mold or fungus, like derivative, like mushrooms or truffle oil, even things surprising like a lot of nuts, bananas, things that come out of the ground that would have mold attachment to them.
What about cheeses?
Yep, a lot of cheeses. I can only have certain types of cheeses, which really stinks. But
like a blue cheese or something
Cannot
like
have
that
blue cheese.
because of the mold, right?
Yep, exactly, or gorgonzola. So Twin Cities is great about restaurants offering either having different things on their menu or being able to ask and say, does this have it in there or not? I mean, it used to be where you'd say something and they'd roll their eyes at you like, oh, you're one of those. And I'm not asking them to make the dish different. I just want to know what's in it.
Right.
I'm not trying to be a pain, but what is in it,
Sure.
Yeah. Luckily, cheese curds are okay.
A favorite food of yours, perhaps?
Yes, that would be, one of many, but that would be my go-to.
She likes her cheese curds.
Yeah.
Tammy, you've had some pretty cool things happen during the course of the Muddy Paws history, and among them, one more recent and one that goes back 4 years now. I believe it was 2011. When you actually got a chance to visit the White House. I mean, you brought cheesecake to the White House.
I did. I was one of 50 people in United States chosen for their first and only White House tweet up.
A tweet up.
A tweet up. But they didn't have Wi-Fi, which made it really funny.
At the White House.
So I couldn't tweet.
Yeah, so this is 2000. So first off, a couple of things. Yeah, that's weird.
It was killing me.
Step it up, White House.
Thanks, Obama. How could I pass it up? 2011, first off, the Twitter world was kind of
It was
new
pretty
then.
new,
Yeah.
and I was one of a lot
They
of people.
didn't have Wi-Fi.
I know. That was the ironic part of it. There's a lot of things that happened on that trip, but anyhow, that's one of them.
But you're one of 50 people that got
invited
involved
from
in
United
this whole
States
thing.
that got
yeah.
to go, and really, I'm like, there's so many more people on Twitter that are better than me. Like, why me? Like I'm just a little cheesecake maker, and they're like, well, you're funny and you talk a lot, like because I was like writing funny things like, oh, Buffett's going to be there today. I'll bring my margaritas, like things like that, or they'd have a White House lawn party. I'm like, I'll bring lemons for the honey vice, and I would just be tweeting these things. No one would ever write back to me. Like they're like, there's that strange girl,
Obviously seeing these things. They're seeing them.
Yeah, they are. And so
somebody in the White House communications office or whatever.
Exactly. And I had won Best Social Media of Minnesota that year as well, so maybe it tied into it. I don't know.
Sure.
But so anyhow, I got a phone call, and they asked me to come, and I really thought it was a joke.
The phone call.
Yeah.
I had a good. Yeah, that's what I was about to ask you about. So you get this phone call. Miss Tammy Cabrera. Yes, this is the White House. Sure, it is.
Yeah, sure.
Rob.
Thanks, brother.
Or whoever.
Yeah,
right,
yeah exactly. And then I kind of going with it thinking this is going to be some ad for some credit card or something. And then they're like, well, we need to get your background check in, and this is how you do it. And then it got real serious real quick. So and then the more I did the background check, the more this is real. And so yeah, it was a really long day. We got there right at 8 a.m, and everywhere in the White House it says no food allowed. But I decided to bring these cheesecakes anyway, and I went through federal marshal frisking. I went through a lot of different wands, a lot of different security checks, and I made it all the way to the Oval Office with this cheesecake, and I was proud of that. So
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that you're in the Oval Office and you brought food all the way through.
All the way through. It says no food allowed everywhere. Yeah. So the same thing, I'll go back to this, but same thing happens at airports. I always think, how are they going to let me on this plane with this cheesecake? And they always let me on the plane with the cheesecake. So I'm like, okay. But yeah, we got inside. We all, we went through a press room announcements and got to meet a lot of the staff. And then I stood up and asked for Bo Bosis, which is the White House chef. And he came out and I said, I have some cheesecake for you. I'm sure your cheesecake's just as good, if not better. But I wanted to bring you some Minnesota cheesecake if you could pass this along to the president. And he did. And they wrote me a nice letter later on and thanked me and said they enjoyed it.
Wow.
So that was really
just great.
That and meeting the dog, Bo. Those are my
your background.
Those are my two moments. Did you meet the president? No, I met the dog.
Yeah, he was the best dog too. As I recall, because we talked about this in 2011, it was a red, white, and blue cheesecake.
Correct. We did a triple berry cheesecake, and I also brought the Elvis banana peanut butter cheesecake. So I thought those are two American specialties.
Sort of icons, yeah.
Icons, yeah.
Are those two of the many recipes that are still on the Muddy Paws roster?
They are still on there, and they're still, really popular.
Is the triple berry called the White House cheesecake now? Or?
I should really change that one of these days, shouldn't I? Yeah, and get some more
Play that up a
marketing
little
out of it.
bit,
Yeah.
yeah.
What am I thinking? Marketing
you
girl.
and your marketing background,
Yeah.
too.
Way to go on
President
that.
approved.
What was your first big food moment as a kid? I mean, what was sort of a turning point for you as a kid?
I grew up in food. My parents let me do anything I want in the kitchen, which is great. They let me, make what I want, help them out, and they really trusted me in the kitchen. So I was always part of my life from the time I was born or young until now. I've always enjoyed eating. My parents would often go out to eat to learn about different places or different recipes. So I grew up eating out at nice restaurants a lot. And my dad did a lot of business meetings at restaurants. And I remember so many nights putting ice cubes in my eyes, like while they were talking. And, but Charlie O's was my dad's favorite place in Lake Geneva. But yeah, so I grew up in food. And to this day, I would say I'm an easy date. I'm a cheap date, except for when it comes to food. Like, I'm happy with. I don't need fancy clothes or cars or houses, but give me good food. Like, I'd make a terrible jail cellmate because I'd be like, I'm not eating this.
This is canned
Crap.
corn.
What is it, salami?
Leave me out of this.
Yeah.
Tammy, I know we only got you for a while here on Foodie Friday, so I want to make sure, and we're going to spend some time here with Laura Michaels from Food Service News. So I want to make sure that we get to something that we do on every show. First off, share with us the recipe that you brought along. I don't want you to read me a laundry list, but what are you sharing with us recipe-wise, first off?
I'm bringing an enchiladas recipe. It's a family style enchiladas recipe. I grew up with a great Mexican restaurant called Hernandez Mexican in Delavan, Wisconsin. My dad did a lot of work with local immigrants and others to help them get started in the restaurant industry, going to court for them if they couldn't speak English, helping them get funding, helping them actually do the remodeling and add new construction. So anyhow, this one place Hernandez has still there is fantastic, authentic Mexican food, which is still my favorite go-to place in the world. So that's really where this memory comes from is good Mexican food. And I love making it at home. I love to have people over and make a big, big Mexican spread and homemade chips and salsas and pico and enchiladas.
And the whole thing, yeah.
Yeah, and margaritas.
We asked you and Laura to both bring recipes, and you both handwritten them. So I really appreciate that, because I love seeing recipes like that. I mean,
Yeah.
the word processing doc is fine, but
Yeah.
this is the way, that grandma would write a recipe out on a card and share it or
Yeah.
something like that. And
Exactly.
that's
I always
what you did,
say there's
so.
our tornado. Like that's people see me. They say I'm going to grab my recipe book, because all my handwritten recipes are
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get the kids and the
Yeah,
dog out
yeah.
first, but then the recipe book. Yeah.
So you hand wrote yours, and Laura, you did the same. So we're going to share these socially. I'm going to say right now, I'm going to take pictures of those, and we'll share the images. So people can zoom in and see. They can see your writing, and they can see Laura's
Yeah,
writing.
I'm
That'll
looking
be,
at mine now to see if I make sure I spelled everything
I
right.
wish I would have wrote it a little better.
Being the journalism
know
English
what?
major, I better not have
Just
any
spill
typos.
something on it quick.
What I like is the realism of that moment. Not only the fact that you're double checking on the journalistic side, but also, Tammy, I see you scratched something off there and kind of went, it doesn't. Oh, you added 9x12 pan. Yep, some enchiladas. So I like this. There are little additions there.
Well, you know
just
why?
like a recipe would look like.
It would
you
really
know?
look like that. And the thing is, I do a lot of things from just knowledge, but I think, if I'm giving this to somebody, I have to tell them, like, turn the oven to 375 or do a 9x12 pan or what size. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So now you got to make sure. Oh, you got to write it in there. Yeah, 'cause
Exactly.
you know what it
'Cause
is.
I know what it is, but
Right.
somebody else might not.
Tammy, thanks so much for joining in. We're going to do the Foodie Friday
Yeah.
5 with you right now. 5 questions that we ask every
All right.
guest. Laura, you're getting a little shot across the bow here, so you'll be able to
Yeah,
think about your
I am.
answers
It's-
as we ask Tammy Cabrera, the first of the Foodie Friday 5. What's the first thing you ever made by yourself in the kitchen that you had to cook?
It's simple, but French toast. I grew up making French toast really young. Everybody loved French toast in our family, and they give me breakfast.
Make you happy.
Yeah, I still like French toast, and I love doing St. Agnes sourdough bread with it. It's just the best.
Oh,
Yeah.
the local St. Agnes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that is good stuff.
Good old Klecko over
Yeah,
there. He's
love-
one of my favorite
he's
people.
one- me too. He's one of mine. Yes.
Well, and French toast takes a little bit of finessing too. I remember a night in college where I had all of this leftover bread, and it was right before like Thanksgiving break or winter break, and it was like, come on, guys, I got some
Have to
French
use
toast
everything.
for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Lyd, you've got our
Go-to.
second question for Tammy.
I certainly do. What's the most pretentious food you crave? So we're trying to demystify this word foodie. What's something that someone could hear you say that you're looking for and be like, oh, well, Tammy wants this, really? But it's all about good food. We can like good food.
Your prison cellmate, perhaps. Oh, well, there's Miss Fancy Pants.
If I ever go to jail, you're bringing me Christos. You're bringing me something.
I will.
Yeah,
Canned
we go.
corn. Not for Tammy, apparently.
Exactly. I am a brat. I really am. I'm okay with that. I don't actually eat very much meat, but once in a while, I do love a great filet mignon with béarnaise sauce, and I don't really like it butterflied. I like to just sit there and wait for it for an hour and have a nice low ball, cocktail with it and the garlic bread and relish tray with it. Like I think it's a Chicago Supper Club thing.
Yeah,
It's-
Supper Club thing, right.
They don't have a lot of those here, but I grew up with them all over the place growing up. And so I'd rather have a 2-ounce filet mignon than a 16-ounce porterhouse any day.
With that béarnaise sauce, too.
with the béarnaise
Nice.
sauce, yeah.
Good pretentious food. I'm craving it already.
I know. Let's go.
Here's question number 3. Which person in your life taught you the most about food, Tammy?
That'd be my mom. It was nothing too difficult or trending, but it was good basic recipes that have followed me through my life that I still depend on for my basics. Steak provençal, a great spaghetti sauce, homemade chicken pot pie, just all kinds of things that are classics, but for a good pie crust, things that you just have to learn from mom.
Good mom recipes.
Yeah, exactly.
Question number 4. The smell of this food makes you feel the hungriest.
I love a great bakery. I could eat my way through Italy and France just eating desserts. I could have desserts great desserts for all 3 meals. I really could. To this day, I eat some form of dessert for breakfast, every day. My mom let me have blueberry pie growing up for breakfast, and so I still love good blueberry pie for breakfast. But the smell of a good bakery, I can't help myself. Yeah.
What's your favorite bakery in the area?
There's a lot of great bakeries, but I do love Patisserie 46 and all that they do. It's just very authentic. It's lots of different cultures that play in it. It's just beautifully done visually and taste-wise, which is always the 2 things I try to do with Muddy Paws too, is visual and taste.
Yeah, it's got that old school feel, which we really appreciate.
Yep.
And not only in terms of the look, but also, of course, the taste.
Yeah.
They're just wonderful.
Yeah, and time-consuming, and
Yeah. Yeah, the real, like you hand make the cheesecake.
hand make
Yeah,
our
you can tell
cakes
that's
and-
what's going into that, too.
Exactly.
As Lyd mentioned, you can feel the love and things that you eat there. You know?
can.
Yeah, you really can. All right, Tammy, before we say so long, thanks for joining in. I know you got a boogie. I appreciate you being here on Foodie Friday. Thank you so much. What's your guilty pleasure food? What's your guilty pleasure food? It can be highbrow, it can be lowbrow. You just find one that just makes you go, I got to have it. What is it?
I would say 2 things. I would say Alfredo or cheese curds, but I'm going to go cheese curds. I kind of have my own personal, maybe a little bit lonely cheesecake or cheese curd crawl. I mean, I'm post cheese curds wherever I go across the world, and people put up with me with that. So
It's Tammy's
As
guilty
long as you
pleasure
share when
food.
you're buying them.
exactly.
You got to have the ones with the teeth squeak, too, don't you?
Yeah, I like the fried ones. And people have a war over mozzarella or cheddar. I like either one. But when I want a regular cheese curd without being fried, I drive to Green Bay. I'm sorry, or Ellsworth. But I love the Green Bay. The different creameries around there, and they're squeaky, fresh, wet cheese curds.
just
and I don't
delicious.
share well. I'm not a good sharer. Get your own bag.
That hand gets slapped.
That's right.
Before you head out, Tammy, what's going on with Muddy Paws Cheesecake? What's coming up in the future for you?
Well, Laura heard it first. She was my lucky
did.
first person to hear about it. But I'll be announcing it, and I'll say the second announcement here, I guess, is that we're going to roll out a food truck division of Muddy Paws. And it won't just be a food truck. It's going to be a vintage camper. I put a deposit down on a camper that's 1956. and it's
super cool.
Yeah, it'd be super cool, and I can't wait. So we're kind of like an ice cream man. We're able to go places that some food trucks can't go just because we have a pre-packaged product and we're not cooking on wheels. So we can actually go to softball games. We can go go to your office. We can go to your driveway. We can do whatever we want, kind of, with a permit.
Because you said prepackaged, so you'll be able to just, it's in the cooler, and you can just sell it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
no prep on site. No need.
And they said we don't have to have a kitchen on site. We have to have commercial NSF approved coolers. Other than that, everything is pre-packaged. So that's kind of the beauty of it. And we hope to actually, get a few of those going for the summer. When I get one going, we're going to start a Kickstarter. I don't know what platform that's going to be on, but you can find all the details at our website at muddypawscheesecake.com or on Twitter at mpcheesecake. But we'll post everything hopefully this Friday or beginning of next week as to how you can be part of the Kickstarter. We'll have some really fun incentives, and it'll just be a fun thing to be part of. And we'll have a big party, of course. Everybody that's in the Kickstarter be invited to, with free cheesecake, of course. So,
oh, love it! Can't wait to throw some money your way.
Yep, count me in
all
already.
right, I like that attitude.
Dig that. Tammy Cabrera from Muddy Paws Cheesecake.
Thanks for
Thank
calling
you.
in, Tammy.
We know you got a boogie, Tammy. So thanks so much for joining
Thanks
in on
for having
Foodie
me.
Friday. You are the
Yeah,
best, my
great to see you,
friend.
Tammy.
Have a good weekend, guys.
Keep us posted on all that cool stuff. That Kickstarter campaign sounds just great.
I will. Thank you.
We'll be looking for
All
that
right.
Shasta camper coming up in a driveway near us soon.
We're going to even have a VIP table on it that people can actually sit on that little table inside.
Love it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Adorable.
Thanks again, Tammy.
Thank you.
Good to see you, my friend. Laura Michaels, where did this whole world of food begin for you? Were you a kid like Tammy Cabrera when the world of food embraced you? Were you an older, a young lady when this all happened? How did this all begin for you?
I was not as fortunate to have a restaurant family growing up. I grew up in a very small town in Iowa called St. Ansgar, population give or take 1,000.
Little town.
Yes, very, very small. And so our dining choices were the local Paradise Pizza or Sportsman's Lounge, which were very much straight from freezer into the fryer. And there it is on your table.
Small town food?
Yep. And,
We have a fine jarred Parmesan on the table that I think you might like.
our house made ketchup, but really they're just pouring.
Right, into a different container.
57 ingredients.
And now,
Yes.
when I go home, I love it. And, I think Sportsman's, now that Tammy left, I can say I think their cheesecake or their cheese curds rival the deep fried cheese curds they make there.
Yeah,
Delicious.
that's good. Otherwise,
and-
we might have had an Alive and Social Studio Foodie Friday
I waited till she
throwdown
left to
going
say
on
that.
here. Yeah.
Rumble.
Yeah, the rumble here at the Alive and Social.
Yeah, so my, food life growing up was fairly limited. My family did move just outside of town to a little acreage, and so we ended up having quite a sizable garden, which was really maybe kind of the turning point where I realized food comes out of the ground.
Right.
You can pick it fresh. You can eat it fresh. It's right there. My mom had us out there picking peas and tomatoes, and we had a pumpkin patch at one point. We had strawberries. It was 3 acres of land that we didn't farm, but we just had all gardens.
Did you start out as a townie and then move next to the acreage, or did you stay in town and then just acquired the acreage and went out there and did your thing? Yeah.
We moved 3 miles out of town.
Okay.
It was, as a 7-year-old, it was very traumatic. So
Right.
when my parents
Oh,
said
my
we were
friends.
moving, they're like, "Oh my God, are we switching schools?" No, just 3 miles outside of town. And my mom grew up on a farm, a working farm. They had pigs, cows. They did crops. My grandparents had a dairy farm, and so she really wanted to get, a little bit back to that. We, had rabbits, horses, chickens,
What a great bucolic,
a variety of critters.
a
running
bucolic
around.
childhood. Yeah.
Yes. And she was finally then able to, as my sister and I have an older sister, got older, and we finally, weren't quite as picky. She was able to make some better food for us than we would have eaten, as little kids. And she grew up in a very large family, with 11 brothers and 4 sisters. And so she still to this day can't make a regular sized meal because she's so used to preparing things for a lot of people. So it's always great because now I go home and she'll send me off back up here, even though I'm almost 30 years old with, either whether it's, from the cow, they have a local locker that they go to where she's, still buying whole cows almost
Right.
to put in their deep freeze in the basement. So, it's quite nice to go home now and be able to bring back a little something to stock my fridge.
Yeah, indeed. Mom's taking care of her daughter.
Yes, she hasn't quite
She
been able
can't
to let go.
She can't help herself though. Mom needs to because
can't.
otherwise all that food's going to be there.
Yep, my poor dad.
He is fed.
Yes,
fed.
he just eats and eats and eats.
This recipe that you brought along here, this lime pear salad, you mentioned this came from your grandma.
Yes.
Is she an influence on you as far as food, or is mom more so, or dad, or who?
I think my mom probably, made the biggest impact on me just in terms of what lessons, in terms of eating fresh food that I've carried through. My grandma was very sneaky in that she always told us, oh, she's making her homemade cookies. But I later found out they were the recipe from the back of the Toll House package, which they still tasted.
They're good.
They tasted fantastic. But, she was very much a recipe follower, not so much of a, like I'm going to throw something together type of thing. And the recipe that I did bring today is one of hers that she had submitted to her Lutheran Church cookbook. And so it's a lime pear salad, and you've got your lime jello, your cream cheese, your Cool Whip, a can of pears, and you throw it all together and put it in a Jell-O mold, and it is quite delicious.
So food is incredibly evocative. I mean, the smells, the taste, it's probably the most evocative thing that we as humans have in our lives, arguably. So does that do this for you? I mean, when you have just one bite of this, do you see grandma in your mind's eye? Do you feel the feelings of, maybe 7 or 8-year-old Laura in Iowa? I mean, all those things happen for you?
That is the exact picture, and that's what's so great. My grandma has since passed away, and so this is something that I'm able to make. Or, when I'm home, I'll request, hey, Mom, can you throw this together for me? And immediately I'm transported back to their, my grandparents' house, where for every holiday this was on the table. And so, it just kind of triggers all those memories. So it's just a really nice way to kind of be nostalgic, kind of remember things that maybe I haven't thought about in a while. So that's what, I love about food.
What was Grandma's name, by the way?
Grandma's name is Verva.
Verva.
Yes, and I don't have kids yet, and I've always debated if I had a daughter, would I bless her with that name or would it be a curse? I'm not sure, but I love it.
I love that name, Verva.
So managing editor at Food Service News, did you always kind of know you were going to be in the food world, having that kind of background with having fresh food at home, knowing that this is important, having these kind of evocative memories with food? Has that always been kind of in the background or not so much?
Not really the food writing aspect of it. I always knew I wanted to be in the journalism field, and, went to school for that. That was, my mission from day one, even coming out of college. People kind of at that point were saying, well, newspapers, publishing.
Got them on the way
They're
out.
not going to be around now. Are you sure, this is what you want to do? And
your cigar chomping uncle. Are you sure, kid? This is what you want to do?
Yeah, exactly. So, but I stuck with it and, had a few different jobs out of school, moved to Chicago from Iowa City after graduating, and was out there for about 5 years working for community newspapers. And that kind of, being in that more urban setting, very different from just about any town in Iowa. I don't care what they say, how big it is. It's not the same as Chicago. But kind of being able to get exposed to, different methods of preparation, kind of the intricacies that really go into a nice menu, one that, is different from, something that you would find out of the freezer type of thing. And so that kind of
Lodge. Yeah.
Right, yes, definitely, helped give me a good background when I moved to Minneapolis. My first job when I came here was for a different publishing company writing about RVs and camping equipment. So it was a huge transition even to come across the food writing, but I found it to be a much better fit. The industry here, as I'm sure you guys have talked about, is just exploding even the couple of years, that I've been with Food Service News. It's just a wonderful industry to cover. The people are so dynamic. Everyone has a different story. I mean, listening
just in the last
Tammy,
couple of minutes. I mean,
right.
We learned something new. You learned about that food truck, food camper initiative from Tammy talking about it recently.
Through
but we
a
just found
different
out today.
conversation.
Right.
And
wow.
Yeah, and that's always been, one of the things that I've just loved about reporting is kind of being a little bit on the inside track, even if I can't always put the news out there right away, trying to be respectful of, when people want to release information, kind of knowing it first has always been a fun appeal to me.
Yeah, indeed. In the food service world, I want to make sure that we let folks know that may be listening that aren't in the industry, and that's the lion's share of our listeners, to be honest with you, that Food Service News is an industry publication. So this is sort of an insider track for people that work in the industry, that are attached to the industry in some fashion. Give us a little more idea of what Food Service News is all about.
Right. So our readership is the restaurant owners, the operators, the chefs, the bar managers, kitchen managers, people on the distribution side. So, your Upper Lakes Foods, Performance, U.S. Foods, people from all of those companies receive our publication. And also the small producers, the family farms who are trying to get their products into the restaurants. We cover, everything from one location restaurants, up to the larger chains, also through healthcare, school food service, really just
Every aspect
of the industry we really try to include. And our focus is telling the stories, of that people have, and also how they are able to be successful in what is, as Tammy was mentioning, a very often low profit margin business.
Absolutely.
Different ways that operators are, finding ways to stay relevant with increasing competition every day.
Well, and it's a great resource for people in the industry to utilize. Is this something that has been replicated before, or are you even privy to that kind of information? Where was Food Service News based off of another idea, a similar publication elsewhere?
From what I know, our publisher purchased the magazine in 1993 or 94, and before that, I'm not too sure what exact form it was, but our publisher, his name's John Hamburger, which everyone always loves because it's just so fitting. He saw an opportunity that people, kind of didn't have this resource, and he knew that he would be able to pull a team together to provide it. And, that's what he's been doing ever since. There are a few, other regional publications, some out of the larger cities. Chicago is one, as well as, some national publications that focus more on chain, your Applebee's, kind of Olive Garden type of places. So ours is very much focused on the independent operator, whether they have multiple units or just the one. We don't really, Food Service News doesn't really cover anything with, franchising. We have a separate publication that does that. So I get to focus really just on what's going on in the upper Midwest in Minnesota.
You seem to be in a bit of a catbird seat because not only are you the managing editor, so the overall content of the publication, but you're writing too. So, you get both of these things going on in your career path.
And that's what one thing, before I came to Food Service News, I was with a much larger corporation and had, went through some layoffs and things like that, and realized I like being able to have my hands in a little bit of everything, so I'm putting together the publication every month. I'm writing for the website. I'm doing the photographs. I'm, reporting. We have a small team, but really I think that helps me just gain so much more knowledge. Where if someone else is, responsible for it, I might not even read their story. Whereas now, I'm reading everything if I'm not writing it.
So there's so much that you cover. It's just such a wide array of information to be utilized. What do you think is the biggest struggle for Food Service News, in your opinion?
Trying to really, I guess, make sure that we're encompassing, and being a resource for all of our readers, not just, it's very easy to get stuck on what's going on in the metro because there is so much going on and it's very relevant, but at the same time realizing we have operators, in Rochester, we have operators in Duluth, in smaller markets that, they're trying to figure out, they're dealing with the same struggles, labor costs, food costs, but, how can we make our stories relevant across the board?
So finding that balance and making sure everybody's represented equally.
Right, which, you really can't ever do, and especially, with a limited page count or, things like that, limited resources, but, that's something that we really are moving toward, and we launched a new website last month, which has helped a lot, kind of, I'm not constricted to a page count there. I can definitely do more online.
We wanted to go off on a quick tangent with you in regard to some things that are happening in food culture and beverage culture. And one of those things happens to be the Blue Laws deal that we have in the state of Minnesota. Lydia.
Certainly do. There was a demonstration on Sunday with a 30-vehicle caravan going across the Minnesota-Wisconsin border into Wisconsin to purchase beer on a Sunday, because we can't do that here in Minnesota. One of the director of the Minnesota beer activists, Andrew Schmidt, says this is just a small representation of money that's leaving our state every Sunday.
I like the fact that there's an organization called Minnesota Beer Activists. First and foremost.
Tamara Kramer, who owns the store Vom Fast at the Mall of America, says that she estimates she loses about $50,000 to $100,000 a year just on Sunday sales, potential Sunday sales, I should say. But a lot of people are talking about this. A lot of people, I used to work at a liquor store, brought it up all the time, where it's like, oh, well, can't come in tomorrow, can you? But it's like, right, but that's my guaranteed day off, dude.
Right.
Back off.
Mm-hmm.
But it is kind of an antiquated law. It's an 80-year-old law. Blue laws are instated to kind of enforce religious standards. People think that you shouldn't be drinking on a Sunday. You should be going to church.
Which is funny because a lot of people I know who are on the religious side of things are some of the heaviest drinkers. So
irony.
I keep wondering how that one works.
Indeed. And what if you're Jewish? Your
Yeah.
Sabbath is on
Right.
Saturday, for crying out loud. So, what's your take on that? Do you think that should go away?
And there's definitely obviously two sides to it. A lot of the smaller operators are saying if we have to be open one more day, we're, spending time with staff or spending money on staff, having just the cost of business to be open one more day, but we're not actually making more money. It's just people that would have came in on a different day are now coming on Sunday. So they're spreading out their sales. But ultimately, I think it comes down to clearly the consumer demand is there, to have a demonstration like that at the Capitol. And, when you're in this industry, hospitality in general, you're there to provide a service to other people.
Yep.
And if they want that service on a Sunday, then ultimately you need to be there to provide it. And I think whether it's this year or next year, clearly the beer activists are not going to stop. And I think they'll eventually convince the state legislators to get on board.
The religious overtones or implications notwithstanding, it also used to be more of a Monday through Friday work week.
Yep.
And then Saturday was sort of a maybe work day, but also a day to get things done. And then Sunday, as Lydia pointed out, was more of a church day. But now it's a 7-day-a-week world that we live in, 24 hours
No
a
one
day.
has a regular schedule anymore. It's, you want to be able to purchase things when you want them and you expect that. And so for the state to, not allow that and losing money over the borders where all, I believe every state that surrounds Minnesota, you can buy alcohol pretty much anytime you want. I know you can in Iowa. I think they'll get on board here soon.
I used to live in Florida for a while, and there it's whenever you want it. They have drive-through liquor stores.
Right.
And
Yep.
coming back, it was like, oh, dang.
And it's Sunday, and I forgot to buy. I got people coming over, and I forgot something there.
Yeah, they've got a few more weeks of, lobbying until I think the legislature wraps up like May 18th or something like that is the last day they're in session. So we'll see what happens over the next couple months.
It'll be one thing at a time. Perhaps the domino will fall on the beer, wine, and liquor sales on Sunday, and then the blue law will change potentially with the automobile dealers, which were wrapped up more or less in the same set of blue laws there.
Yep.
So, if you've only got Sunday off, you're
that's when you
working.
do-
When are you going to go shop for a car if you need it? Aside from the
buying
liquor?
cars, you should be in church.
You should be
yeah,
in
that
church.
one I just can't even understand.
So we'll see how that all tumbles out. Some props here on Foodie Friday on the Alive and Social Network to Schussler Creative. Steve Schussler and his crew are opening the Boathouse, his newest creative initiative that'll be opening sometime in spring of 2015 here at Disney Springs at Walt Disney World. Steve and his folks at Schussler Creative from their work on Yak and Yeti, on T-Rex, and of course the Rainforest Cafe, which was the first big offering from Schussler Creative. Not taking into account, however, Jukebox Saturday Night, which used to be in downtown Minneapolis, and that was quite a go-to location where a lot of that theme-oriented stuff came into Steve's world. The Rainforest Cafe sold some years ago to Landry's, but now 45 locations. However, that original location opened in, check this out, it just doesn't seem... It doesn't seem right. Time passes by quickly. October of 1994.
They had the technology for moving dinosaurs back then. Who would
Exactly,
have thought?
and sprinkling us from the ceiling with rain showers. Yeah, the original location at Mall of America closed mid-January, only to be reopened soon at MOA on the 3rd floor.
So it'll be
used
a
to
canopy.
Yeah.
It'll be the rainforest
It's very
canopy.
fitting for
you
them.
go.
Absolutely.
So shuttered for about 3 months while they make the move. They'll be next to Bubba Gump's Shrimp Company on the 3rd floor at Mall of America, where more of that food and
Right,
entertainment
right.
stuff is going on. So again,
Absolutely.
props to Steve Schussler and the folks at Schussler Creative. Give us a little idea before we do the Foodie Friday 5 with you, Laura Michaels, managing
boy.
editor at Food Service News. What is around the corner at Food Service News, and then also with you and your I'm going to call it a newer embrace of the foodie world, given that your journalistic career brought you to this food thing just a couple years ago.
Yeah, and I'm lucky I have a very understanding boyfriend who, when we go out to eat now, I'm one of those people that is taking pictures of my food, but I say it's for work.
really?
It is
No,
for
it
work.
really is.
And it's not even with my phone, it's with our big professional camera, and so it can
So
be a
they
little...
know you mean business.
Yes. So I'm not just one of those people.
Yep.
So we've got a few things coming up for Food Service News. I mentioned the launch of our new website last month, but we're working on pulling together a group of panelists for a business summit. We used to do them. This will be, I guess, the 10th one that we've done, the 10th year in a row that they've done one. And so it's bringing together different operators to kind of talk about the issues that are facing the industry and how people are dealing with them. We're going to host that Tuesday, June 23rd, and that's going to be at Libertine Restaurant.
Okay.
So we have the time and place nailed down. We're excited about that.
Boy,
And,
a lot of issues, too. I mean, we're talking about the beverage side of things. We're talking about tip credits. We're talking about a lot of different things. Yeah.
And it's difficult sometimes to get restaurant people in one place at one time because everyone is so busy,
kidding.
as small business owners. And so it's always great to get everyone together and they can kind of share ideas, bounce things off each other, see what's working, what isn't. So we're excited to host that again. And for me, I am looking forward to a brunch at Third Bird. I live just near Loring Park, and so I'm very excited that
Sweet.
that restaurant moved into the neighborhood a few months ago. It's one of my favorites, just about like anything that Kim Bartman does. And so I will be settling down there for a few hours in the morning.
That sounds good. That is a nice new location. I'm
Yes.
glad that she took it over, and what a great spot too. I mean, that whole run, from Lurkat and down the way. What beautiful views and all of
Yes,
that.
it really is. And I love living there, being near the park. It's fantastic.
Good on you. All right, ready for the Foodie Friday 5?
I am. I've been thinking about
See, that's
my
right. You
answer.
had a shot across the bow as Tammy could join us just for the front end of the show, and so now you've had a chance to think about these 5 questions. So here we go. Laura Michaels, what's the first thing you ever made by yourself in the kitchen that you had to cook?
Yep, and this is one where, again, I'm glad Tammy's not here to hear me say this. Cheesecake out of a box.
Out of a
was
box.
really one of the first things I can ever remember being able to make on my own. And
Was that like a powdered cheese then? or?
It's a powdered mix where you are
Yeah.
basically adding milk
Yeah,
and
yeah.
a few other things maybe, and you just whip it up and you pour it into a pre-made crust, of course, and you
Obviously.
pop it in the fridge. It's one of the things that my dad would make. He would always volunteer to bring dessert anytime we had a family gathering, and his secret was boxed cheesecake.
So
And
this is more like cheesecake pudding, essentially.
Yes.
Yeah, a refrigerated pudding.
But it's
Boy,
it's
I'm
one of
glad
those
Tammy's
things
not
where
here. Yeah.
Gosh.
you might not want to look at the ingredients label, but ultimately it tastes delicious.
Yeah, very good.
Definitely doesn't
Nice.
take the 40 hours that Tammy's cheesecakes
Right.
do.
Yeah.
All right, question number 2. What's the most pretentious food you crave?
Well, and this is funny because my food experience was very delayed until I had, left Iowa, sadly, and moved to Chicago. And so now lobster is probably the one thing where if I see it on a menu and I know I'm at a good seafood spot,
Yeah.
that's what I'm going to order, with just the right amount of butter on there.
No matter what anybody thinks.
It's,
Oh, look at that Laura Michaels. Fancy Laura.
right. And it's not an especially fancy food. I've realized now, but
When you know
when
the history.
I'm with, yes.
When you know the history of lobster, you really know. Yeah.
But yes, it's just one of those things that really stuck with me the first time I had a really good lobster tail.
Used to grind them up and use them just as fertilizer back in the day. It's true. When people
Learning.
came to the
What?
country, I know. Can you imagine that? Laura Michaels, which person in your life taught you the most about food?
Well, and it is almost a coin toss between my mom and my grandma, but I will say my mother as well, just as Tammy did about hers. She really just made it a point, going back to just the freshness of food and really understanding where your food comes from. Like I said, she grew up on a farm, and even though I didn't, visiting my grandparents' farm, and I have several uncles as well that, have kept that going, it really just kind of makes you pause and think that someone is producing this for me. You value it a little bit more, I think.
Mm-hmm. Very nice.
Question number 4. The smell of this food makes you feel the hungriest.
Yes, I know this one right away. It's a breakfast sausage. It's just something that always was cooking in the morning on the weekends.
Is there a
and
subset of bacon wrapped in there, or is it really just more the sausage
just
thing?
the sausage?
All right.
The sausage. It was, when we didn't have to be up at a certain time, but you smelled that in the morning and you knew, hey, it's worth getting up now.
It's on.
Here I go. The feet, I can just see him skidding on the far, little Flintstone
Yep.
style or whatever.
Fighting for the last one, always
Yeah.
with my sister. Darn her.
Boondoggle for that last sausage. Final question. The Foodie Friday 5 takes us this way. What's your guilty pleasure food, Laura Michaels? Highbrow, lowbrow, it doesn't matter. What do you got?
Yes, it is about as low as you can get.
All right, here we go. Well, we started with cheesecake out of a box
Cheesecake
already
out of
being
a box.
woven into
We
this story.
might as well end with something that is coming out of a box. I am a sucker for the Cinnamon Toast Crunch cereal.
Nice.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
can, whether I'm eating it, sadly on my couch watching TV, or
Or happily on
or
your couch watching TV.
eating it like a civilized person in a bowl with a spoon. It's just I have to, when I go to the grocery store, if I buy it, I will eat it in one sitting. So I limit myself to even keeping it in the house. But then that cereal milk at the bottom,
Oh, baby.
it is just too good. As I've mentioned to a few people, I'm waiting for the idea of cereal milk in bottles to come out. I think I saw it on a Shark Tank. I don't know if it ever actually got made, but I would totally buy it.
So you would have to limit yourself to one bottle or
Yes.
jug of Cinnamon Toast Crunch
Gallon,
milk at a
however
time.
big they would give me, as long as I was just buying the one container.
Just the one.
I would feel okay about it then.
I think that'd be a good experiment. Let's bottle some. I know that they have an ice cream shop in New York where they make ice cream out of cereal milk. So that I'm gonna have
Yeah,
to invest.
people
in.
that throw it, that pour out the milk at the bottom, I don't understand you.
Yeah, what's going on with that?
Wasteful
Come on.
and churlish.
Yes, especially coming from the world of Cinnamon Toast Crunch fan Laura Michaels, managing editor at Food Service
Yes.
News. You don't have to be a food insider to learn more about what you do and what you write about. Folks can just take a peek at the website
Absolutely.
too, can't they?
Yep. So the print publication is, a subscription list of, specific owner operators, but foodservicenews.net, you can read all the same stories, check out, our Top Chef book that we do every year, vendor directory, lots of resources on there as well.
What a pleasure having you here, my friend.
This was a lot of fun.
Thanks for joining in on Foodie Friday. Now it's off to the grocery store for another box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Yep, I'm thinking about it. That'll probably be my next stop.
And thank you for joining in on the Alive and Social Network. Our thanks also to Tammy Cabrera, proprietor of Muddy Paws Cheesecake, for joining in on the program. My name is Brian Turner,
I'm Lydia Turner.
and we'll see you next Friday for another Foodie Friday on the Alive and Social Network.
Thanks for listening.